Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Katie Mishler. Today I will be speaking to you about The Invisible Prince, Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu's Dublin. The 19th century novelist, journalist, and storyteller, Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu is best known for his forays into genre fiction, particularly historical romance, sensationalism, and the Gothic. His two most critically enduring works are Uncle Silas, a big house locked room mystery novel, and In a Glass Darkly, a collection of supernatural ghost stories published a year prior to his death. While showcasing a mastery of Gothic terror and suspense, these works also exemplified the diversity of Le Fanu's literary output. One of Le Fanu's greatest contributions to Gothic fiction is his innovation of urban ghost stories, a small oeuvre initiated by the publication of The Watcher and the Dublin University magazine in 1847. I've written elsewhere about how Victorian conceptions of urban experience shaped Le Fanu's early ghost stories. Set in either Dublin or London, these supernatural tales broadly engage anxiety spawning from urban life, encompassing commuter culture, rental economies, surveillance, crime, urban planning, and home invasion. Throughout this video, I will begin to map the biographical topography of Le Fanu's life in Dublin. The civic morphology of the city as it exists today was largely built in the 18th century. But Dublin has, of course, undergone countless transformations since Le Fanu's death in 1873. Much of the urban landscape which gave rise to his supernatural fiction has been demolished and redeveloped, or currently lays in a state of Gothic dilapidation. Although this is unfortunate for the Le Fanu enthusiast, this state is perhaps a fitting for a Gothic writer whose writing deals with displacement and dispossession, as well as the fragmentation of the past. The gradual redevelopment of Le Fanu's Dublin creates challenges for commemorating his contribution to Ireland's literary heritage. Yet, the disappearance of places of historical significance energizes posthumous readings of Le Fanu as a recluse. The enduring mythology of Le Fanu as Dublin's Invisible Prince is in part a romanticization of the author as an isolated relic of a bygone era, one that detracts from the reality that, as a journalist, editor, and newspaper proprietor, he was connected to the political and intellectual circles of 19th century Ireland. Le Fanu was not descended directly from the Anglo-Irish aristocracy. Rather, he was descended from French nobility. However, the intermarriage of respectful Anglo-Irish families, including the Bennets, the Dobbins, and the Sheridans, helped to cement the Le Fanu's family's membership within the urban Protestant professional classes. Le Fanu's ancestors, like those of fellow Dublin Gothicist Charles Robert Maturin, were French Huguenots of nobility. The Le Fanus were forced to leave Normandy after Louis XIV revoked the Edict of Nantes, a proclamation which had previously granted Calvinist Protestants substantial land rights in France. Forced into exile in Holland, Le Fanu's ancestor Charles de Cresseron, who would later appear as the narrator for the historical romances The House by the Churchyard and Wilder's Hand, joined William of Orange's army and fought in the Battle of the Boyne in 1690. After serving as a distinguished senior officer in William's regiment, de Cresseron retired to Dublin in 1710, where he leased a house on the west side of St. Stephen's Green, and was soon joined by his younger cousin, Philippe Le Fanu, from London. After de Cresseron's death, Philippe, the novelist Le Fanu, his great-great-grandfather, inherited half of de Cresseron's assets. This is alongside another cousin, Jacques. Philippe's son, William, was the great-grandfather of the novelist Le Fanu. He was also a successful merchant, banker, and agent, one who often assisted displaced Huguenot families throughout Ireland. At the time of his death, William had amassed an impressive amount of property within Westmeath and Kings, now Offaly, counties, as well as Dublin city centre, including houses in Ann Street, Francis Street, Fleet Street, Lower Abbey Street, and North Ann Street. He also lived in a townhouse on Stephen's Green. The Le Fanu family memoir does not specify the fates of these assets. However, they do not appear to have been inherited by Le Fanu's direct ancestors. It was from this line of prosperous merchants, landlords, and professionals that Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu was born in Dublin at 45 Lower DOMINICK Street on the 28th of August, 1814. Lower DOMINICK Street was located in what was then a relatively fashionable area near Henrietta Street, the heart of the Gardner estate, which artist and draftsman James Malton praised as being the noblest street in Dublin, one that is inhabited by persons of the first rank in opulence. The history of number 45, DOMINICK Street, follows economic and social shifts in housing throughout the late 19th and early 20th century, particularly in Dublin's inner-city north side, as single-family homes were converted into tenement housing. Number 45 was later demolished and replaced by council flats in the 1960s, which are pictured here. In the past 10 years, Dublin City Council has initiated a €35 million refurbishment of these flats, which will comprise 72 new social housing units and a community centre. This slide also shows the council's vision for the proposed construction. Le Fanu's early childhood was more suburban and largely based in the villages of CHAPELIZOD and Ballyfermot, as well as the nearby Phoenix Park, where his father, Reverend Thomas Le Fanu, acted as the chaplain of the Royal Hibernian Military School. The school remained open from 1765 to 1924. It is now a nursing home, St. Mary's. In the 19th century, the park was a representative focal point of British political power in post-Union Ireland, serving as the site of municipal and administrative residences, including the Viceregal Lodge. The public park prominently features in Le Fanu's historical romance, The House by the Churchyard, as a site of violence and military activity. What is believed to be the eponymous house from the novel is, as you can see from these slides, derelict, but remains standing on CHAPELIZOD's main thoroughfare. CHAPELIZOD further sets the scene for a series of Le Fanu's ghostly tales, including Ghost Stories of CHAPELIZOD and Gossip of CHAPELIZOD. In 1826, the family relocated to Abington, County Limerick, after the deanery of Emly was granted to Reverend Le Fanu. It appears likely that this former rectory in Abington, built in 1804, once served as the former Le Fanu home. Although modest in comparison, it is the closest he ever came to living in a country estate or big house. By 1832, the tithe war had escalated, and amidst ongoing agrarian conflict, Joseph witnessed terrifying verbal and physical threats of violence directed towards his immediate family. His father also suffered a substantial decrease in income, as the Catholic majority resisted paying tithes to the Church of Ireland. Throughout Le Fanu's youth, financial worries plagued his family, who were forced to sell off land holdings and take on substantial debt. In the 1830s, Le Fanu attended Trinity College Dublin through a country list system, which allowed students residing outside of the city to receive their qualification by passing examinations without attending lectures. As a junior sophister, he became a member of the Hist Debating Society, through which he socialized with a number of young men who would later become prominent politicians, writers, and journalists, including Isaac Butt. Le Fanu permanently returned to Dublin in 1839 to practice law after he qualified as a barrister, a vocation he soon abandoned for journalism. His ongoing monetary issues later in life are in part reflective of his choice of a literary rather than a legal profession. After his marriage to Susanna Bennett, the daughter of a successful barrister, in 1843, the couple moved to a terraced house at No. 15 Warrington Place in the southern suburbs by the waters of the Grand Canal. It is here that he wrote his first urban ghost story, The Watcher, in 1847. No. 15 still exists today, but unsurprisingly, it has been converted into individual flats. It wasn't until 1815 that Le Fanu began to reside at Susanna's former family home at No. 18 Marion Square, the townhouse most closely associated with his creative and intellectual life in Dublin. At this time, the prestigious Georgian Square was inhabited by members of the emerging professional classes, including the medical, legal, military, and educational establishments, as well as members of the gentry. After Susanna's death in 1858, Le Fanu, filled with grief and guilt, became progressively withdrawn from society. He still engaged in social activities, which were necessary for the benefit of either his children or his newspaper business, and he kept a small circle of close friends. After his death in 1873, Le Fanu's social reticence became both mythical and symbolic. In the obituary published in the Dublin University magazine, which Le Fanu formerly owned and edited, an anonymous writer states, "From that time of his wife's passing till his death, he led a secluded life, mixing little in society from which his handsome, distinguished face was missed. To the public he was scarcely known apart from his books." This passage collapses the distinction between the writer's personal life and the pages of his supernatural fiction. Although it is interesting to note that Le Fanu himself played a role in deliberately cultivating this persona, but by aligning himself with the isolated and tortured characters central to his work, such as Uncle Silas. Although the origins of Le Fanu's princely moniker are unknown, it was first recorded by Le Fanu's close friend, the poet and folklorist Alfred Percival Graves. Graves also is likely responsible for the obituary in the DUM. In a biographical sketch introducing a collected edition of the Purcell Papers, published in 1880, 7 years after the writer's death, Graves constructs Le Fanu as a ghostly shade, one who was, as I mentioned previously, dubbed the Invisible Prince of Dublin in the final years of his life, as he was reportedly almost entirely absent from public life, unless, at odd hours of the evening, he might occasionally be seen stealing, like the ghost of his former self, between his newspaper office and his home in Marion Square. Sometimes, too, he was to be encountered in an out-of-the-way bookshop, poring over some rare black astrology or demonology. To one of these old bookshops he was at least one time a pretty frequent visitor, and the bookseller relates how he used to come in and ask, with his peculiarly pleasant voice and smile, "Any more ghost stories for me, mister?" This anecdote paints Le Fanu as not only a teller of ghostly tales, but as an urban phantom stealing away to the periphery of the city in search for forbidden knowledge, a modern Melmoth. 20th century biographer S.M. Ellis further perpetuates the lore of Le Fanu as a living embodiment of Anglo-Irish anxiety, as well as an eccentric who allegedly wrote intermittently throughout the night, amid the darkling shadows and that eerie period of night when, the powers of darkness are rampant and terrifying. In this mythology surrounding Le Fanu, his imaginative powers are almost supernaturally embedded within the psychic spaces of this house. He becomes almost inseparable from his home in Merrion Square, which exists almost as his own version of the Anglo-Irish Big House. His son Brinsley alleged that he wrote mostly in bed at night, using copybooks for his manuscript. He always had 2 candles by his side on a small table. One of these dimly glimmering tapers would be left burning while he took a brief sleep. Then, when he awoke at 2 a.m., amid the darkling shadows of the heavy furnishings and hangings of his old-fashioned room, he would brew himself some strong tea, which he drank copiously and frequently throughout the day, and write for a couple of hours in that eerie period of the night when human vitality is at its lowest ebb. Here, Le Fanu takes on the characteristics of the haunted Reverend Jennings from Green Tea, who is able to access the world of spirits through his consumption of the beverage. Ellis further reports that at the time of his death, Le Fanu was plagued by a recurring dream of a dilapidated mansion positioned precariously above his sleeping form. This ruined manor, reminiscent of the big house he had so often depicted in his romances, threatened to topple and crush Le Fanu. The persistent horror of these dreams were terrible enough for him to consult his doctor. Eventually, when the end came, and the doctor stood by the bedside of Le Fanu and looked in the terror-stricken eyes of the dead man, he said, "I feared this. That house fell at last." Le Fanu's position within the elite Anglo-Irish Protestant society of Dublin was profoundly precarious. He was himself a tenant rather than an owner of the townhouse at 18 Merrion Square, where he resided with his family until his death. The house belonged to, as previously mentioned, the house belonged to the family of his wife, and Le Fanu initially leased the home from Susanna's brother John after her death in 1858. Heavily in debt, by 1868 he owed over £900 in back rent and was forced to mortgage his leaseholder's interest. Subsequently, his children had to vacate the property immediately after his death. In this sense, the house did indeed fall with his passing. Originally built as a single-family home, Le Fanu's former townhouse continues to fuel Ireland's creative industries as Number 70, the offices of the Arts Council of Ireland. I'm grateful to Sarah Bannon, Director of Literature for the Irish Arts Council, who allowed me to take these photos of the interior of the building and its Georgian plasterwork. Whereas civic buildings reflect the city's political power, Georgian terraced townhouses and squares were constructed as monuments to the aristocratic and ascendancy classes. The grandeur of the multi-story terraced house lining elite residential squares and streets were not only expressed by their size, but their exterior and interior decorations, including detailed fan lights, intricate ironwork, rich plaster work, and ornate balustrades. Those wishing to make a Le Fanu pilgrimage in Dublin can visit his final resting place in the Bennett family vault at Mount Jerome Cemetery, Harold's Cross. The writing on the grave has largely eroded, but it is identifiable by a plaque that reads, "Here lies Dublin's invisible prince, Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu, 28th of August, 1814, through 7th February, 1873, novelist and writer of ghost stories." I asked the caretakers of the cemetery if they could trace the origins of the plaque, and I was tentatively told that it was likely placed there within the past 10 to 15 years by a, quote, group of local enthusiasts in order to better mark the vault for visitors. Although the factuality of these tantalizing macabre fragments of Le Fanu lore have been contested by critics, they reveal a compelling and enduring narrative which continues to surround the writer. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and that you learned a bit more about Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu's Dublin